I'm going to go ahead and do the introduction, since we got Mr. Rob Miller on here with us now.
Yes.
Joining us is Mr. Rob Miller, educator, former Bixby superintendent, and now candidate for state superintendent. Welcome, and thank you so much for dealing with the troubleshooting of getting on here. Thank you, and of course, want to introduce our amazing, lovely hosts here, Miss Elizabeth and Mr. Michael. They are here every Wednesday with all the right questions, so make sure you guys are tuning in every week on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Miss Elizabeth, or I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, would you like to say a little something about yourself to kick us off?
Of course, but I'm trying to figure out why my picture's not up.
I had to do the same thing, and then when I clicked on like my face, another little box popped up, and I just had to hit the camera.
Yeah, and it says I can only connect with audio.
On the laptop?
On the
Oh,
laptop?
On
On
my
your phone?
Mm-hmm. This is I'd like for people to see me.
We would like
too.
that too.
Same.
I washed my hair and everything.
Darn it, I took a shower. Oh no.
Randy says it's because of the lack of followers.
That just can't be. Look at Randy, said leave it to a native. That's right, bro. Just saying.
Should I try back on the computer?
Mm-mm.
No.
I don't.
I think we got you on here now.
Mr. Miller, this will not be the first
because
time
it won't let you
request an
to have
interview.
100 followers.
I think we got you.
Okay.
This is so silly.
Well, I'm happy to join all of you on a Wednesday evening, especially to talk about something I'm very passionate about, which is public education in our state.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for giving us the opportunity, other candidates as well, just to share our thoughts and vision about what we can be in Oklahoma versus where we are today. My background, my journey started a long time ago, 47 years ago, with a science teacher at Charles Page High School in Sand Springs, Oklahoma, who one day when we were setting up for lab one morning, took a young boy with not a lot of confidence who didn't really have a plan for the future and intervened in my life in a positive way by simply saying, what can I do to help? Because he had asked what my plans were for college. I didn't really have any. My parents couldn't afford it. And a teacher outside of class asked that question and genuinely meant it. And so what we did over the next month or so was put together an application for a Marine Corps ROTC program, which was a full ride scholarship. Back then, there were only 250 scholarships a year that were awarded nationally. So he helped pull that together, got letters of recommendation, helped edit my essays, all those sorts of things, and enabled me to apply and receive that scholarship back in 1979. And I still remember the day that I got the letter and showed him that I had done that, and the look of joy and satisfaction on his face, because he knew that I had potential to go to college and make more of my life than what I did. So we teachers do that all the time. They see things in their students that sometimes the students don't see themselves. And he created a pathway for me that led me to Oregon State University from Oklahoma. And again, that is because that's where he went to college for his graduate degree. So this boy from Sand Springs got in his car, drove 2,200 miles out west to Oregon, degree in geology, was commissioned a second lieutenant in the Marines, spent the next 10 years as an artillery officer in the Marine Corps. Then after Desert Storm, came back to Oklahoma. I went into the classroom really because I wanted to be an active parent, wanted to have a career that enabled me to spend a lot of time with my own kids. And a career that enabled me to spend a lot of time with my own kids, and school science teacher, then 13 years as a middle school principal, and then the last 3 years as, and then the last 3 years as an in Bixby. So just finished up 32 years in education and loved every minute of it. I really do. And it's easy for me to say, well, it's just time to retire and move on. And I'm 64 years old. I'm still what I consider to be young. I'm still healthy. And I still have a burning desire, that passion for I can do more. And so those words from Mr. Mogwin back in Charles Page High School 47 years ago, what can I do to help now drive my mission moving forward? I believe I've got the skills, knowledge, the background, the leadership ability to bring people together and hopefully create a sustaining plan to improve education in our state. And so that's why I'm running. And there's no political aspirations beyond that. I will serve as long as I can as state superintendent, and then I'll retire again.
Right. Get it.
Love it. Love that you're not going out the easy way and continuing fighting for your passion. That's awesome. Miss Elizabeth, kick us off. I know you got a few.
I know, woo woo. Well, welcome, Mr. Miller. We are so glad you're here. This is such an honor. We've been so excited to have you on.
Yeah.
I think, did you forget to mention that you were at one point Teacher of the Year and one of the national finalists for Principal of the Year? National, like, hello. Like that is amazing. Let me share this accomplishment with you because I mean that's a big national principal from Oklahoma score.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I'm just like, wow, that's so cool. But then I went to Gina Nelson and I thought, what is it with these Teacher of the Years? They're amazing. But you guys have been targets at the same time, so which is kind of something I want to bring up. I'm just going to go ahead and just put it out there. We haven't heard anything about the lawsuit in a while. So we were wanting to know if you're able to, because we know this is a distraction for him, right? But for us, like it's serious business, right? And so can you tell us kind of what's going on with that and where we're headed?
Of course. I want to start by saying the idea of filing a lawsuit against somebody is not, I really had no desire to do that. But based on the comments that he made on July 31st last year, I gave him an ample opportunity to say, hey, either show some evidence to support your allegations, what you're saying about me, or retract your statements and simply say, I was sorry, I shouldn't have said what I said, and we'd have been done. But he simply dug in, repeated those comments again on another news station. And so we did file a lawsuit on August 15th of last year that his side filed what's called a motion to dismiss based on what they felt it was a frivolous lawsuit. It didn't meet the statutory requirements for defamation. And that was heard by a Tulsa County judge who ruled in our favor and said that it did meet the requirements. And so since that point, that was last November, he filed for an appeal. That appeal is now at the Oklahoma Court of Civil Appeals, and it's been there since May. And so the wheels of justice move rather slowly. And so that's just, even when they come out with the decision, that decision is appealable. And we haven't even gotten to a point where we're asking for discovery or interview statements or anything yet. So I anticipate that it'll be a couple years before we go, but I'm not willing to let it go because He said things about me that were not accurate. He knew they were inaccurate. He said them with malice. And I think that's part of what the problem is in our politics today. It's like it's fine to have respectful disagreements about all sorts of things,
Right.
but as soon as we resort to name calling, and especially this is more than name calling, this was actual defaming my abilities to do my job.
Yes.
I think people just need to stand up and say that's not acceptable. I'm not going to let you get away with that.
Yeah, as we should. But yeah, so we were just talking about that because we were around for that, and so we were just talking about that. About we haven't heard anything about this in a while, but there's so many other things, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I'd like it to go a little faster. I'd like to kind of get it in the rearview mirror. Got other things to focus on.
Correct.
Yeah.
But we just kind of wanted to kind of get that out the way because how we're talking about it, and it it has been a big deal. I mean, there's so many things going on, but that in particular, you're like, that's one of your superintendents, sir. That's one of your superintendents, and that's what you do. Like, that is not okay. Tiffany or Michael, do you have anything spark? Michael?
I kind of want to jump in on start some of my questions. First, Rob, I just wanted to say that I'm super excited to have you on here like everybody else. I'm going to start with my first question, if you don't mind. My first question is, how would you handle funding disparities between wealthy and underfunded districts?
That is a very complex question. Really, the role of the state superintendent is to work with the legislature and the governor's office to make sure that those funding inequities don't exist. In Oklahoma, one of the things that we actually have done pretty well for the past few decades is have a funding formula that tries to do that balancing. So there are some small schools that, for example, have ad valorem. They may have a oil producing plant or a Google in their backyard, and they receive a lot of ad valorem taxes from those entities. And the state funding formula offsets that by crediting or charging them so that whenever that figure for state aid is determined by the legislature, they may not get as much per student as another district that doesn't have that local base of ad valorem taxes. So there are mechanisms in place to try and balance that as much as possible. That being said, there are some districts that are what's called off the formula, which means they don't receive any state aid at all because their local ad valorem is so high, that receive a lot of money per kid. I don't see ever going in there and taking any of that back. It simply means that those small communities get to benefit from the extra resources that they have. I am concerned just because there are students that, just because of what they come to school with, are a little bit more expensive to educate. Maybe they've got learning disabilities. Maybe they've just got difficulties at home, reading challenges, all those sorts of things. And we need to have resources that are available to provide those schools to make sure that those kids have equal opportunity and access to high quality instruction and resources. I was very fortunate to be superintendent here in Bixby. I also worked in Jenks, two districts that for the most part are well resourced. Our teachers have what they need because we also have a very active and involved community, and we have parents that are willing to say, what do you need? I'll make sure you have that. And I'd love to see that same equity across the state of Oklahoma. But those are the types of conversations that we need to sit down and have. And regrettably, we spend most of our time with public education talking about culture wars and things that really don't make an impact, like funding and policy. And the role of state superintendent really is not as exciting as people may think. You don't really have a lot of authority. You are a manager of the State Department of Education. You get to help the school board set policy. You get to work with the governor and legislature to enact initiatives that hopefully will improve student outcomes. But for the most part, it's a job. And that's unfortunate where we are today, where somebody's viewing it as really an opportunity to improve outcomes for himself rather than improving outcomes for Oklahoma's kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything to expand on that?
I will, but it kind of goes into my next question. Are you good?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So when you talk about some of, those outside barriers and situations that do affect our kids inside of the school, food, abuse, mental health, substance use, whether it's them or the family. I know at one point in time, like they've had specific groups where kids would help each other, whether it was a recovery group or LGBTQ or autism. Like they had groups where they could do that. And I know that we already have mental health professionals that are either A, in the school, or B, on call and can make it to the school. What is something that you as school superintendent could help people like us assist with implementing these services or some of these programs for our kids that are in the public schools, whether it's a recovery group, whether they're having some mental health issues and they just want to like kick it and find out maybe more about their own stuff that's going on. If they're having food insecurities, do we have a food pantry, or do we have, some assistance? Is that something that you can do as school superintendent or guide people in what to do to help with that stuff?
That's a great question. And I think, like I said, there are communities that already have that infrastructure in place. In Bixby, we've got Bixby Outreach Center that provides food for families that have unstable nutrition needs. And I know a lot of urban and suburban districts have those sorts of things. Churches obviously contribute tremendously to so many of our families. I think for the State Department, the primary role should be assisting school districts in identifying what those resources are and being able to connect the right people with that. One of the things that so many people out of education, and it doesn't sound like you guys seem to have an understanding that not all of our families and not all of our children come from the same backgrounds. And so when we look at, even here in Bixby, Oklahoma, where we are blessed to have a relatively affluent community and people that are not struggling from paycheck to paycheck, but we do have families that are. And we have kids that are struggling with mental health, and we have kids who are struggling with addiction and suicide ideation. And it's not just as simple as assuming that everyone's child and everyone's family is the same as mine. And we have to be able to open our minds and our hearts to the reality that not everyone has everything that they need. And a quote that I love to share is from Nick Ferroni, and he says that children that are loved come to school to learn, and those who are not come to school to be loved first. And so we have to make sure that we're filling those gaps for our young kids who are coming. And they may come without breakfast. They may come wearing the same clothes as they had yesterday, and wear that place. And I'm not saying that we have to be the parents, but sometimes that child, in order to learn to his or her potential, needs a little bit more from us. And it's part of our responsibility. And we do it all the time. If we have a kiddo who doesn't have glasses or needs some medical attention, and we work with the parents to try and identify where we can support that family. And it, I don't know if there's a set program. To me, it's just having the awareness and understanding that there are a lot of people in Oklahoma who want to help, and what we can do a better job of is tapping into that assistance and getting it directed to where it needs to go.
And that's where people like us
Yeah.
come in.
Yeah. I kind of want to expand on that. I was just doing some research. So, kind of touching on what Elizabeth said, Ryan Walters had threatened to withhold federal funds from Oklahoma school districts if they did not agree to end DEI practices. So, is that something that you would continue with Ryan Walters' path if you were elected, or is that something that you're going to be doing different?
I'll be honest with you, many of the things that Mr. Walters says, I don't even know where they come from. I've been working in education for 32 years, and when he talks about DEI, I'm not even sure what he's talking about. What I believe is that every child deserves our best effort. And public schools, the mission of public schools is to take every single child who walks in their front door, regardless of their background, regardless of their race, creed, economic background, anything, and educate them to the best of our ability. And so when he talks about DEI, what I see is, are we talking about being respectful of other human beings? Then yes, we need to teach our children how to be respectful citizens, because that's the world that we're trying to create. We need to teach them how to have civil debates and discussions with other people, and understand that, again, the world is different, and so much of where we are is a virtue of the environment in which we grew up and the experiences that we've had in our own lives. And so I think when we start to close our mind to that is when we really start to have challenges. Now, if he's talking DEI, like, different grading scales for different students, or I honestly don't know where he's talking about. And it's the same conversation about CRT or pornography in libraries or any of those things, that when you try and really pin them down and say, what do you mean? Help me understand what you're talking about and what you're trying to eliminate from our schools. I just saw a cat on the screen.
They will go away.
We're spending so much time talking about these issues that really don't impact our schools in a significant way. And that's, I think, where the real change is, and separate people's opinions about Mr. Walters himself or the things he says. We're not in a place where we can afford to be wasting time doing culture wars and stuff. We've got real challenges in our state, improving literacy and numeracy at early grade levels, building career pathways, having educated workforce to fill the future jobs in Oklahoma. There are big, big topics that we need to be talking about, and we get distracted. Just like the last 3 days, we've been distracted about the whole Charlie Kirk episode, and it's a tragedy. Nobody's discounting that, but he's trying to use it as a distraction with his moment of silence and then his comments today, and that's not productive. And so school staffs around the state are all now responding to phone calls and having to put out press releases and all sorts of other things instead of have school and help our kids be successful.
Correct.
Love that. I'm going to jump in here really quick. I have
Come on.
I have a burning question, and I think this is probably on the minds of everyone here or in Oklahoma. I'm a parent of a child in Oklahoma public schools, and I am concerned that we're ranked 50th in the nation. What specific steps would you take to raise that ranking?
Here's the first thing. And anyone who will say that they have a plan and it doesn't start with improving the quality of the educator in the front of every classroom, that's where it has to start. Because we can put any literacy plan on paper, but if we're not going to really invest in recruiting and retaining high quality educators in our schools, then it doesn't matter. It's like the Oklahoma City Thunder 5 years ago could have said, we're going to win the title this year. They weren't ready to win a title yet. They needed to build the capacity in each of their classrooms and schools with high quality teachers who have the training that they need in order to make this happen. So if you use an example like the state of Mississippi, and I don't know if you've heard much about what's happened in Mississippi since 2013. They have dramatically improved their reading outcomes, especially in their third and fourth grade. And they did that by working across the aisle, Democrats and Republicans and the governor and the legislature and the state superintendent and local businesses and higher ed, and saying, what do we need to do to move the needle for our kids? And they came up with a plan. So they hired over 70 literacy coaches that they placed throughout the state to work with school districts that needed the extra assistance. They hired additional staff to actually go in and mentor young teachers to make sure that they understood how to teach the science of reading and other literacy skills well. They implemented early interventions, which meant that they were identifying students as young as 4 and 5 years old who had reading challenges so that they could intervene as early as possible. They implemented a third grade retention plan, much like we had here in Oklahoma. And I've got some mixed feelings about that in particular. And they invested. So that first year it was $15 million. I think now it's about $30 million. If we scale that out for Oklahoma, we're a little larger. It probably costs us $40 or $50 million a year. But it's a plan, and they've sustained it even though they've had changes in leadership, new governor, new legislators. What all of the people who signed on to this said is, we're not going to just continue to throw different things at it. We're going to come up with a plan. We're going to be patient. We're going to persist, and we're going to wait, and we're going to see results. And that's what's worked. And so some people call that the Mississippi miracle. There's nothing miraculous about it. It's about people working together, coming up with a plan that is solid, based on research, making the strategic investments in the funds that are needed, and following through and sticking to it. So we can do that in Oklahoma. But what we're not going to do is turn things around overnight. We have to really start investing. And one of the things I'll say about those rankings too is that we have to be careful that we don't put so much weight in some of those, because most of those state rankings are based on what's called the NAEP test, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, that's administered to kids in 4th and 8th grade. In Oklahoma, it's somewhere about 1.5% that are randomly selected to participate in this test. So again, you're taking students out of class, giving them a test. The school never gets the scores. The student never gets the scores. Family never gets the scores. Nobody ever knows how our students do. I'm not even 100% convinced that the standards, the academic standards on that national test are aligned well with our own Oklahoma academic standards. So there's a lot of peeling back the layers to really evaluate, why are we number 50, and what are those things that we can actually impact in a positive way to move the needle. And I'd be happy at the end of 4 years if we'd moved up to 35 to 40. We're not going to move up to number 1. It's not going to happen that quickly. But we can't be satisfied with 49, 50. That's just not acceptable. I'm a proud Oklahoman, and I have grandkids in our schools. I want them to be successful. I want our state to make a significant investment in the right programs to improve outcomes for kids.
Thank you for that breakdown.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, because we were actually talking about this last night about, the number of, there's 5,500 emergency certifications over
Yes.
just pay our teachers. I don't understand that. But at the same time, so I do understand that because this is what's happened. But also, how is the attempted dismantling of the Department of Education going to affect us here in Oklahoma with our public schools?
A lot of that is still up in the air because we've heard a lot of rhetoric out of the federal government about what's going to happen. I think the Congress right now is still looking at the budget for some of that this year. There are some positive aspects, and I want to be careful in saying that I'm not for total abolishment of the U.S. Department of Education, especially if it's done in a reckless, capricious manner. We have to be careful. We don't want to go in there with an axe. We really need to use the scalpel here because, like any federal agency, is there extra bureaucracy and red tape and things that use resources that would better be targeted towards schools? Absolutely. And so if we can streamline the U.S. Department of Education in such a way that additional funding is actually available and states have a little bit more autonomy in how to spend that so that it impacts the right communities and the right schools. What I'm concerned about is that if that money just comes as a block grant to states, then it matters who's in charge, who's making those decisions. Because at the end of the day, we have to be very protective of our students that have those extra needs, that are from poverty, that need the extra resources. And so if you start talking about breaking apart Title I and redistributing that into tax credits or something else, or special ed dollars being reappropriated for other choices, it can get pretty dangerous quickly. And so I am concerned about how that process would take place. And in particular, with the current state superintendent, I don't have a lot of confidence that that money would be allocated in a way that best serves students of Oklahoma.
I believe that you're correct. I believe that we've already seen evidence of that. So I don't think that you're too far off the mark.
Can I circle back to,
Yes, please.
You were talking about your first step would be making sure that, our teachers are equipped and stuff like that we have to start with our teachers, right? And like Elizabeth said, we have 5,500 emergency certified teachers in the classroom. Is there any steps that you're thinking about taking once you take, say, state superintendent to reduce that number and attract and retain more fully certified teachers?
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to let the teachers that we currently have know that they're respected, that they're valued, and we appreciate the hard work that they do every day on behalf of Oklahoma's kids. Because right now they don't hear that. They hear a lot of vitriol, they hear a lot of negative rhetoric, and you can't run any organization when you constantly disparage the very people who are instrumental in making anything happen. So our teachers need to know that we value you. And part of that is not just words, but also with money, right? We've got to make sure that our teachers are fairly compensated, and we've got good data to show where we are regionally. Again, our numbers have moved up a little bit, but every state around us is doing the same thing because they're having teacher shortages, so they're increasing their pay. And so we've got to make sure that we have a fair starting wage. One of the areas that I would focus on is those mid-year or mid-career teachers. Because the way it is now, you can have a teacher who starts at $42,000 and in 20 years they're making $58,000. Well, that's not right. They've committed their entire career to being an educator. And there needs to be their built-in incentives to say, hey, if you're willing to go after 10 years, you're going to see a significant bump mid-career if you're a good teacher, because we want to retain you. And great teachers, why not make $75,000, $80,000? But right now, it's very difficult because their step increases every year barely stay ahead, if at all, with inflation. And so a teacher after 20 years is kind of making what they did when they started 20 years before, adjusted for inflation. And that's not right. We also need to incentivize our young people, because I think right now the messaging is, why would you get into teaching? You know, it's not respected the way it needs to be. A lot of parents are telling their kids, no, don't become a teacher. You go do something else, be a nurse or something. And we've got to bring pride back into the profession. It is the profession that creates every other occupation. We create the doctors and attorneys and everything else. And we need to have our public standing up for teachers and saying, we value you, and we want young people to come in. And much like my example early on with the full scholarship that I got to join the Marine Corps, I think we could have programs like that where we go into high schools and we find the best and brightest young people and we say, hey, we'll pay for your tuition. We'll pay for you to get a college degree if you'll be a teacher here in Oklahoma. I think you could recruit some folks doing programs like that, but we've got to be innovative and creative, and we've got to be willing to make those targeted investments. I'm not saying throw money at education, because that's what legislators will say. Oh, how much money do you need? Well, the money we have is not working. Right? So I'm not saying we just throw hundreds of millions of new dollars, but we can do it in a strategic way where we can make an impact if it's done the right way.
So I think that kind of, oh, do you have something, Tiffany? Oh, I feel like that's kind of a good intro to the school vouchers. And when my doctor friend gets a check to pay tuition for his kids that are in private school, I'm a little offended. I mean, I am like, you're kidding right now, right? Like, we have people on the street with kids in school. Like, what? So, can you help us out a little bit with that?
Yeah, I understand parents wanting to have choices and be able to select the school or the educational environment that's best for their child. But it's really not parent choice the way it's set up now. It's the school gets to choose. And so when you're talking about a private school, they're not just opening the doors and saying, hey, if you want to come here, come on in. They get to pick and choose, and they get to operate by a different set of rules than public schools, because we take every child who walks in the door. And so students with special needs, students from backgrounds that have educational gaps, we take them all. And to me, if you're going to take public dollars to support your school, then you need to have the same level of accountability, which means that you need to have public board meetings. You need to be subject to open records. You need to have the same transparency financially as a public school does, where all of our financial documents are online. You need to be able to tell your parents where every dollar is spent in your school. Because if you're not willing to do that, then you're not being fully accountable to the people who are paying those tax dollars to you. You need to be subject to annual state testing if that's the model that we're using for public schools. So I'm not saying if you don't want to abide by all those things, then don't take the public dollars. Keep your private dollars and keep running your school the way you want to run it. That's your right to do it. But as soon as you cross that line and say, we're willing to take these tax credits, now I think it's incumbent upon our legislators to make sure that that money has accountability attached to it, and that we're not just shipping it to schools with no way of knowing how that money is being spent.
So since it's already kind of going on right now, I guess that's, you said it's like the tax incentive. How I don't even have words. Like, I don't even know how to ask. Like, that's ridiculous. That these, I was floored when full disclosure, I work in community mental health, and substance use. So it's really difficult for me to work with people all day long that struggle when the dude in Nichols Hills or Brookside or Jinx or Owasso, is getting $5,000, twice a year to pay for the school.
Mm-hmm. Well, an example that I've heard used before is if I'm a golfer and I decide I don't want to play the public courses, I want to go to Southern Hills and play. That's my right as a golfer, but I shouldn't expect the public to pay my dues at Southern Hills so that I can golf on that course. That's a decision for me to make. If I want to golf the public courses, then those are subsidized by my tax dollars, but Southern Hills is not. So again, if you're going to say we want to have those tax dollars follow the kid, then let's make sure that those schools have the same requirements for accreditation, teacher certification, financial disclosure, academic accountability, all of that, because otherwise it's not a fair playing field, and it just profits. Because I think the first year of data showed that 92% of the dollars that went to those tax credits went to families who were already attending private school. So we haven't made an impact on the families who might actually need that school choice because they're still in the same schools that they were. They can't afford to transport their child. Even if they could get accepted to some of those schools, they wouldn't be able to make that happen. And I think the people who push that through know that to be true. It's just redistribution. It's an entitlement for wealthy families to be able to choose a school and get reimbursed for the tuition.
Right.
I think we got a few burning questions down here. And this was also asked in my video for the promo for this. How likely do you think we will see free meals provided in our schools?
Free meals is a complicated conversation because it depends a lot on the percent of children in a school district that are subject to free and reduced lunch. So the way that works in a district like Bixby is that we ask for families to fill out an application for free and reduced lunch. And if they qualify based on the federal poverty guidelines, then we can receive federal reimbursement, either full or partial for that particular child. There are also what's called a CEP application, which allows schools that are above a certain overall poverty level to qualify for kind of a blanket reimbursement for some of those schools. But we ran the numbers here in Bixby, and this is, I'm retired, but I'm aware of what the numbers are. So we have about 8,600 students here. About 26% of those qualify for free and reduced lunch, so a little over a quarter, which means over 6,000 of the students do not qualify and would not be subject for federal reimbursement. For the school district to pick up the cost of feeding those 6,000 students at $5 a day is $30,000 a day. Times 172 days, we're over $5 million. You could eliminate every single administrator, administrative assistant, and quite a few teachers and not touch that $5 million. Whereas other districts that may have 80% poverty, that number of students that would have to make up the difference would be less. But it really goes back to this idea that this initiative or this directive was put out in July after schools had already formed budgets for the next fiscal year. There was no conversation at all in the most recent legislative session. So if somebody really wanted to take that on and say, I believe this is important, that every child who comes to school should have a free breakfast and lunch, I think that's something we can do. Well, then you need to get with the legislature, you need to get with the governor as part of the budget negotiations, figure out exactly what that would cost, and develop a plan to implement it. And it's not going to happen probably in 1 year, but maybe a 3-year plan to fully get to that. But that's the way a leader would take that on, not by issuing directives, but by getting everyone together at the same table and saying, here's something I think is really important, here's why, and what do we need to do to make this happen? And that's what we're not seeing right now with many of these initiatives.
Love that. Michael,
Perfect.
you got
Yeah, just like I think all kids should have access to food. They should also have access to school safety. So, how would you ensure schools are safe without turning them into high security zones?
These are really broad questions. So it is, every parent deserves to know that their child is going to be safe at school. That's the number one thing. They want their kid to not just be safe, but to be accepted and respected and valued at the school that they attend. We as schools must do everything in our ability to make our schools as safe as possible, and without turning them into prison, so to speak, where, and I understand some schools needing walk-through metal detectors and that sort of things, but I've been in schools like that, and as soon as you walk in, it sends the message that maybe this isn't a safe place because there's all these procedures in place. So I'm a big advocate of implementing a lot of safety protocols, but kind of having them behind the scenes where kids aren't always aware of what's being done. In Bixby, for example, you can't just walk into a school. You have to walk in. There's a secure vestibule at the entrance to every school. You have to be buzzed into the office where we verify your ID and make sure that you're somebody who should be in our school. Then you have to be locked or unlocked into the main school. In most cases, you're going to have somebody escort you. If you're going to a classroom, you're not allowed to just walk around. Those things are there. We've got surveillance cameras in all of our schools, hundreds and hundreds of those. We've got them on our buses. So there are a lot of practical things that schools can do to do all we can to keep kids safe. But then we also have to make sure that we're addressing the student interactions and really addressing bullying and harassment in a meaningful way, because that's how it impacts kids. So there are a lot of elements to this. I am appreciative of the legislature who approved the $50 million annual for the last 3 years. That is important to have that. We've got school resource officers already here, but we've been able to use that money to enhance our security in our schools. And I would love to see the legislature continue that investment in the safety of our schools.
Yeah, I would like to also kind of touch on, I know you talked about Bixby and what you guys are doing there. Would there be a plan for more underfunded school districts that may not be able to afford some of the safety measures like Bixby would?
Yes. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record with some of these, but these are not things that one person can do alone.
Yeah.
And the value of having somebody in the state superintendent position who has leadership experience, who has the ability to work with people across the political spectrum, to really be focused on solving problems rather than creating distractions, is critical. And if we're simply going to elect people based on partisan attitudes or cultural issues that we think are priorities, then we're going to continue to get the same results. For me, I don't care if I'm ever on a news station or anything else. And after 4 years, if kids don't have any idea who the state superintendent is, but we know that things have gotten better and that our teacher shortage has improved and our student outcomes have gotten better and our colleges are reporting that students are showing up to college better prepared than ever. It doesn't matter who gets the credit for that. We've made positive change, and that's what we have to focus on.
I love that.
Well, it's 8:04. Do you still have time for us?
Well, I do need to go. I'm actually teaching a graduate class,
Oh.
believe it or not. And so I
Always
stepped out.
educating, huh?
Yeah, I've got 34 teachers that are all Bixby teachers, and they're taking a course in school and community relations.
Oh.
And it's really it's fantastic to be able to work with teachers that you know very well, future administrators, maybe in Bixby and other areas. But I love the enthusiasm that you get from some of these teachers. It is a tough time to be an educator today, and I want to applaud everyone who has made that commitment in our state and is sticking with it. I think the need for great teachers is going to get even more important. And some people say, well, what about AI and what about all these other new emerging technologies? Well, it's going to make the role of a teacher even more important because they're going to be able to or have to know how to use those tools in such a way to meet the individual needs of every child. And I think there's real potential there for individualizing instruction for kids using technology, but it's never going to replace that human being in the front of the classroom who greets his or her students at the door every day, gives them a hug, encourages them, tells them they can be anything they want to be. And so I'm a big fan of Oklahoma teachers and teachers in general. And I know that they are hungry for leadership in our state. And that's why I'm running. And I want to make a difference. And what can I do to help?
How can people find you, donate, volunteer? You have a closing message for us on that?
Of course, I'd love to have people at least learn more about what my positions are and see if they align with their own vision for Oklahoma education. But it starts with teachers, it starts with solid instruction, it starts with high expectations, and it starts with innovation. We've got to continue to innovate education in our state. But people want to find out more, they can go to voterobmiller.com. Pretty simple to remember. voterobmiller.com. There it is. Oh, look at that guy. I'm holding that. Thank you so much. And then we're going to be visiting. We've already started traveling the state. And so over the next few months in particular, if somebody would love for me to come out to their school, send me an invite. And they can do that through that website. There is a link to an email, and we'll make that happen. I want to visit as many schools as we possibly can and meet with teachers, because that's how I'm going to learn what's on their mind, is by actually talking to them.
Love that.
Absolutely. Love that. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any last things for Mr. Rob Miller?
No, I think it's been a great, I've actually enjoyed this. So happy to have you
Elizabeth,
on.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm on mute?
No, Elizabeth is.
Oh, okay. Well, one last thing. You look at my picture there, and that is me in that picture.
Saw that.
No, not that one. The one on my...
No, in that you're holding an
On the
apple
rock.
No, the one where I've got my arms spread out
Off the cliff?
on the screen.
on the cliff.
Yeah.
That is a place in Virginia called McAfee's Knob. It's the most photographed place on the Appalachian Trail.
Oh,
And for 10 years, some buddies and I would take walk 70 miles or so on the Appalachian Trail. But that is one of those places. I know it looks like I'm in a very precarious position, hanging over this cliff. It's actually inclined back a little bit. But when I wrote a blog about 12 years ago, the name of that blog was View from the Edge. and some of your viewers may remember that. I wrote it when Janet Barisi was superintendent, and wrote it for several years. So that's where that comes from, the view from the edge.
Nice.
Sometimes you have to be willing to get out on the edge
Mhm.
and see things the way they really are. But it's really not as scary as it may seem to be.
Yes, I love that. Well, Rob, I do know that we will have you back. I did see
Okay.
some people in here ask, will you do another live?
Love to.
Absolutely, we would love to have you back with us. I think we're about to open the calendar back up. So, yeah, we're really excited to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes,
for
thank you
coming
so
on.
much.
I'll
Yep.
let Tiffany. I get so excited. I know I'm aggressively passionate. That's what I was told. All my passion was like anger because I'm like, what is happening?
Fix it.
All right. Y'all have a great night.
Y'all,
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wednesdays at 7 p.m.
Join us live for Humpday Exchange.
Got a lot to say about the world out there. That's the Humpday Exchange.
Okay, we need a dance.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
We'll come up with a dance when we did.
Yes.
We get all three of us together.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Oh my gosh. Somebody was speaking on here.
That
Somebody
was
said you must be Scorpio. I don't know. That's not me.
I'm a Cancer.
I am.
I'm an Aquarius.
You're Aquarius. I'm Aries on the cusp. Pisces on the cusp of Aries.
Mm.
Like the 20th at 10:58 at night. So I'm like a weenie ram. But the older I get, the more ram I am. Sam I am. I know where that's going. All right, you guys. Well, look. Who is that? RC.
We had a great time. That was awesome.
That was really good. I'm so glad that we had such an amazing audience. Thank you guys
We
so
did.
much.
Thank you.
Aries
Yeah, thank you guys.
Club. Yeah.
For them. Applause for them.
Clap for the
Yay.
commenters.
A round of applause. I love that we were both like
Applause
this.
for them.
Fabulous job. Thank you all.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
I love that we were both like this. Yes. I don't even know what just happened here. Okay, I'm going to hop off. Love you later. And then I know that we've got orientation tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yes.
For those that signed up for volunteer. So super excited.
Who do we have next Wednesday?
It's
It's on my phone. I'm sorry.
Same here. I'm like, ooh, Lisa, who's got?
Oh, I think she's going to go look. Okay. Oh, you weren't going to go look. Okay.
Melissa
Oh, I
Provenzano.
think she's going to go look. Okay. Oh, you weren't going to go look. Okay.
Melissa Provenzano.
Provenzano. Okay,
Okay.
perfect. I like her.
Awesome.
Yay! I've met her like once or twice before, but